All right, today I'm here with Dennis, Jack, and Caleb, and we're going to be discussing the topic of whether student athletes should be paid or not. And Jack, don't you have a quote from the UNC game the other night?
Yeah, NBA player J.J. Redick sent out a tweet congratulating the University of North Carolina basketball team on their national championship victory. He said, "Congrats to UNC, seriously. Also, every player on the court tonight should have been paid. Scholarships don't count."
I think that's a little irrelevant.
Yeah, I think you're getting paid almost hundreds of $1,000s of tuition. How is that not being paid?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit absurd to pay an athlete for something that they're already getting paid to go to school for free.
Child actors get paid, so why would someone who is just playing basketball, who isn't the legal age of NBA yet, not get paid? It doesn't make any sense, because if you were providing a service or providing entertainment, you would also want to get paid.
But child actors aren't necessarily getting paid free tuition. That's a lot of money in the first place. Like, why is every other student opposed to it? I mean, besides getting good grades, why should they be opposed to getting free education?
Yeah, he's also a student athlete. He's not a professional. We don't pay amateurs. In the Olympics, amateurs don't get paid. They just go out and compete for their country. It's the same situation here. We have amateurs playing against amateurs, trying to make it to the pros to get paid. And I don't even see, they should be able to just go pro right away. Why are there these restrictions on the league? If a student doesn't want to be at a college, why should we force them to go? They're adults. They can make their own decisions. If they want to go to the NBA, if they want to go to the NFL, if they want to go to the MLB, if they want to go to the NHL, they should be allowed to.
But they're not, and until they are, I believe that they should be earning some salary, especially the ones who bring in the amount of money they do to the universities. They bring in millions and millions of dollars a season for people to pay tickets, to buy their numbers, and to come see them play. A good example of this would be back in 2014 when the UConn men's basketball team won the national championship, and Shabazz Napier, who was a guard on that team, an all-star guard, and the player of the year, was caught saying that he goes to bed hungry every single night. And this is a guy that people pay $60 to $100 to come see every night. His coach at the time, Kevin Ollie, made $1.36 million. People don't pay to come see the coach play. They come to see Shabazz play, and they come to see the team play. And because of him, they were the highest earning team at the University of Connecticut.
Well, just put this into reference. I mean, it costs $57,000 to go to Duke for 1 year. Add that up over 4 years. I mean, that's just an absurd amount of money. That's close to $200,000. I just think it's a little bit excessive to when that student's only going to be paying that short, we're going to be playing that sport for that short amount of time for them to be getting a free education for that amount of money.
Okay, so just like people come in and inspect the campus and whatnot, especially for the athletes, they're also not allowed to have special treatment whenever from the coaches, not allowed to have money. But I mean, there are more expenses other than just college tuition. I mean, some kids have to eat, and even if you're an All-American 5-star athlete and you get to come play at UK for 4 years with free tuition, you're still going to need more money to eat on and how to get around. And if the colleges and the coaches can't supply that, then I don't know how else that they're going to live other than just because they have the college tuition.
Yeah, but the colleges can provide it now. NCAA has made more rules where it's more lenient with what the athletes can get now. They can get clothing and meals and stuff, and they could get a lot more than back in the day. So that's why I feel like they're getting compensated enough for what they do here at the university. And they're also, you're signing a contract for a lot of money because they want you to stay with that team. You're getting paid to be a one and done at UK. I don't see how that is. Maybe if they were committed to staying 4 years, there could be some type of way where they get compensation. But you're only staying for a year to play one season, and we're going to pay you something that a rookie in the NBA is getting. I don't see how that's fair, since a rookie has to stay for 2 years and you only have to stay as long as you want.
CBS has an article where they did a random poll in 2013, and it actually said that 69% of people said that I'm opposed to paying money to student athletes on college football and men's basketball teams, in addition to covering their college expenses. So there's a lot more people out there that disagree with this topic on the stance of paying them completely besides the paying them extra money at all. And we're also forgetting about the other D3 and D2 athletes. I mean, D3, they get no scholarships unless it's academic. D2 gets partial scholarships, and I don't even think they give full scholarships. And those schools are private liberal schools most of the time. I mean, they're not usually too public, so it's ridiculously expensive to go there as well. I mean, shouldn't they be getting paid? Aren't there stars on their team too, though?
Well, how much do they bring in the university, though? Because last year, when Alabama, the football team, won the national championship, they brought in close to $50 million at university. I mean, how much does a D2 or D3 athlete bring in? I mean, what, maybe 1,000 people go to see those games? Coach Saban, the Alabama football coach, makes nearly $7 million a year. He doesn't make $7 million because he's a great coach. He makes $7 million because he gets great players who play very well. The people don't pay to see him coach. They pay to see his players pay.
But I mean, like, what about those athletes that are putting in just as much work at the higher D2 level and D3 level as a D1 athlete? I mean, aren't they just putting in just as much of work? I mean, I've seen plenty of different college levels to know that they are putting in a crazy amount of time in school and out of school just to play the sport alone. I mean, playing sports in college is a hard thing to maintain. It's like having a job.
And even by law, well, let's not even focus on D2, D3. There are other D1 sports besides basketball and football, such as golf, volleyball, baseball. Like, are these athletes going to get paid? By law, they technically have to if you're paying for the rest. And then let's not even focus on, like, if we are just paying basketball and football players, only 23 of the 300 D1 universities actually had enough money. They actually broke even from them playing. So those would be the only universities that are able to pay. And then if they are able to pay, it creates more of a lopsided balance where you'd have UK paying top recruits to come here every year, or Duke paying top recruits, and then every year you'd see the same championship of North Carolina, Duke, and Kentucky or Kansas. And at a certain point, that's just no fun for fans to watch, and then the league will slowly crumble.
But I mean, at some point, you have to set these kids up for life, because whenever they make it to the NBA, they're not gonna. If they're not one of the better players, they're not gonna make as much money as the MVP of the league, like Steph Curry or LeBron James, just because that they don't have to get paid the same amount of money. They may not even have to be paid money at all. I mean, just because that you get to go to Division III or Division II doesn't mean that you get to make money.
Well, here's another idea. The other day when I was watching the UK football, I was watching a UK football game. They were going through like the starting athletes and whatnot, and it was showing all their majors. It shows that they all have calm and general, really like not even intense majors whatsoever. And I don't get how you can graduate from a school with that kind of major and have their tuition. They're not even going to pay attention to school even more because they're going to be stuck in the moment with them having all this money.
But how much time? Like, they don't have that much time. I mean, a basketball player, he's flying to Texas one weekend, gets back. He has 2 days a week, 3 days a week where he's up at 6 in the morning practicing, goes to class, and then at the end of the day, he has to go practice again. He doesn't have time to be a mechanical engineer. He doesn't have time to chase his pre-med track. He doesn't have time for that because he's so focused on his playing abilities. Because every night he's expected to go out and give it his all, especially at schools like Kentucky, at Duke, because if he doesn't, he gets criticized. And also, a lot of these guys, they have the goals of making the league. In 2013, a report came out from Sporting News that said 86% of student athletes come from poverty. So when you come from that, you're trying to not only make money for yourself, you're trying to make money for your families.
But don't usually schools give them the fifth degree when it comes to like all access to the university, all access meal plans, all access to facilities whenever they need to go to facilities? I mean, they generally in college, I feel like student athletes have a pretty good life because they're really focused on keeping the athlete at that school. So I don't know if that's making it any different money-wise. Like, I don't know if it's worth even giving them extra money because they have such a good setup.
But what do you do when you're on like an away game or something? It's 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. You wake up, you're starving, and you have no money. Then what? You just wait till you eat team breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, that's what a normal person does. If they have the option to do it, if they don't have any choices at 1 a.m. when most places are closed, that's what they do.
But what do you, if you wake up at 2 in the morning, what are you doing? You need a water, or you need like something to drink, or you decide you need something to eat. What do you do?
Yeah, you gotta sink in the rooms, so they stay in pretty nice places. But so like UNC, for almost 20 years, it was just found out that they have been like having false classes for these students just so they could pass them and keep them in their university. Like these kids, like you said, they have dreams of their pre-med tracks. No, they're not even trying to do it. They're just taking classes where they get A's and the teacher does the homework for them essentially, or the TAs do, and then they just go play basketball. Like, it's been going on for 20 years at UNC. So really, are they there for school? No. Why do we make them go?
But I don't know if that applies for every player. I mean, I definitely agree that needs to change, and people can't just be getting A's thrown at them. But look at Luke May, the guy who knocked out Kentucky. He was up at whatever time the next morning. He went to his 8 a.m. He sat in the front row, and I don't think you can say every single player is chasing the easy A. I'm sure there are some, and there shouldn't be, but I mean, that doesn't go for every single player.
Well, yeah, but Luke May is also a walk-on, so there's different treatment.
He said the same thing about Justin Jackson, who's the best player on that team.
I'm just saying. Luke May is a different situation because of the situation.
Okay, you can even look at Alex Poitras. He kept a 4.0 all 4 years while he was at UK. He never once got a B his entire school career, and I mean, he clearly was not a walk-on. He was given free tuition for all 4 years, but he always maintained a 4.0 through his 4 years.
Yeah, but there's no proof essentially that the classes weren't falsified because nothing has come out of Kentucky. I'm not saying they were, but I'm saying there's a chance for it, and that's why.
How do you determine the standard for a student that's a 4.0 student or a 2.0 student? Like, is there a cutoff where they shouldn't be able to be paid any extra money, or do we just keep paying all the athletes as much money as they want? Because if, in turn, I mean, we're going to have to apply this to the NHL, or not to the NHL, but to hockey, all these other sports, lacrosse, baseball, golf, all these other small sports, and you're just going to be paying more and more kids, and the universities can end up losing a lot more money than they intended to.
Well, the university isn't going to be the one paying him. It's going to be the NCAA nonprofit organization.
Oh, the universities would pay him too. It depends. Because
our argument is, should the NCAA pay athletes?
Yeah, but then it would have to be through. They also look at universities too through paying. That's how they. Because the NCAA can't just hand them cash. No, it'd be through the university if they have.
But what about the merch and stuff that the school sells? Like, how would merch apply to athletes?
That's another thing I was going to say. I mean, you can look at the sales of a certain team selling a certain kid's jersey. I mean, if that kid didn't go to that university, then they wouldn't have made near as much money as they did off the apparel of the T-shirt or the sweatpants or the shorts or anything that has their name on it because the kid didn't go there.
If you ever get the chance, watch the 30 for 30 on the Fab Five in Michigan, because Jalen Rose in that said he'd be walking downtown in Ann Arbor, where the University of Michigan is. His shoes would have holes in them. He would have a torn up coat. It'd be freezing, snowing, and he would turn. You'd see people buying his number 5 jersey, and he's getting nothing from that. He's freezing while people are buying his number that he's making popular.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's a different time now. Now the universities and the NCAA can provide them with stuff such as clothing and shoes and whatnot. So they clearly have been updating on it, and they want the well-being of their players, as most people would. So I feel like that's a different time, and now that it's been corrected, most players should be fine with where they're at, with free tuition, free food, free clothing, and I'm pretty sure Briscoe has a car at the University of Kentucky. He's got a Range Rover that he drives around in. So they get cars. There's a joke going around saying if you want a car, the best dealership is the University of Alabama to become a football player. So they get a lot more than is actually seen to the public.
And also, if you get the chance, there's a great CNN Crossfire video with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who's a former NBA basketball player, Hall of Famer, and Christine Brennan, who's a very recognized sportscaster. And they go back and forth. Kareem actually agrees with her that they should get paid, and from his aspect, since he has some experience. But Christine Brenneman's a very well-known expert in the sports world about how the athletic system works and all in general. So if you get a chance, definitely go watch that.
So I still see as the best option for this is to have the NCAA negotiate with the NBA and the MLB specifically, and the NFL actually, to allow students to go right from high school. Because the MLB allows you right initially, but then if you don't like your draft pick, you go to college. We have to sit there for 3 years, okay? And the NBA requires that you go 1 year, and the NFL requires that you go 3 years. Okay, they should be allowed to go right away. It's their decision. Are they not adults?
So would college then be for those athletes that didn't go right away? Then they kind of have that time to develop.
Yeah,
to
more
go
for
professional?
well, that's what college is, to develop your skills and go on if you need it. Like some people don't. LeBron didn't. Vince Carter did. Kobe didn't.
That's very few and far in between, though. Like,
yeah, but like if you
that's like one, like rarely. Like
But
you'll
like-
never see another LeBron James anytime soon. Like,
yeah, but if you think about like De'Aaron Fox, do you think he really needed this year at the University of
I mean,
Connecticut?
that's-
I'm sure it didn't hurt.
It didn't hurt, but like, did he need it? He could bring.
Well, what
what
about
he
college
needed.
football? You can't take an 18-year-old and put him like a running back, put him out there. The kid's gonna die. His career will last.
Like AAA and like stuff like that for baseball is they use those to help athletes develop, and then they put them on a professional.
They don't have that for football though. Like,
Well, they're
you
not
can't-
well, then you have to go to college and develop, or you could test your luck. It's your choice, though. Why don't these athletes have the choice?
It's a really tough decision overall, but I see that there's really no compromise at this point. But I feel like a stronger basis right now is that student athletes still should continue not to get paid.
Yeah, for the listeners out there, I actually had an interview with the University of Kentucky's Budget Office President, Angela Martin, to get a perspective of a university.
I'm not sure how in-depth your knowledge of the NCAA goes, but they've recently passed regulations that allow the university to give them more money that isn't just for school, such as like a kid being hungry at the end of the day. Like a coach can give them money. Do you know any of the details about that?
I do know some, yes, and that comes to it comes down to the total cost of attendance number again. The way that this works is that athletics, there was a ruling, and athletics now in the SEC, athletics can choose. Institutions can choose to actually fund what you would call the total cost of attendance, which includes some money for travel and personal expenses. And so before, athletics could do that. If a student was on a full ride, they would actually not get the full, for example, $28,000. They wouldn't get the money for travel home or for the personal expenses. Now that is different, and UK has decided that if a student is on a full scholarship for athletics, then it doesn't matter if it's tennis or golf or football or basketball, we're paying. And so UK is one of the few institutions, because we do have the resources in our athletic program to do that. If a student is in playing baseball and has a partial scholarship, then they would get whatever that pro rata amount is.
Yeah, and that would be for both men and women's sports,
Yes,
of course.
we do it for all sports.
Okay. And now this is kind of just your personal opinion. Do you think it would be feasible for either the NCAA or for the university to pay the athletes?
I personally would not favor paying students.
After hearing that interview and also from the points Brandon and Dennis made, I can see why paying student athletes wouldn't work out right now. And also, I believe that we are giving them a lot more benefits than people knew about, especially compared to what we were giving them 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with Dennis and Brandon also about not paying student athletes. That's going to wrap up this segment, and thanks for listening, guys.